The night my husband left me was the same night our daughter walked across that stage and made us proud. I suppose life has a cruel way of tying joy and heartbreak together, stitching them into the same moment like they belong side by side. I remember standing in that crowded banquet hall, the smell of roasted chicken and vanilla cake mixing with the faint cologne on Robert's jacket. My cheeks hurt from smiling. Chloe had just graduated our baby girl, the one who used to fall asleep on my chest wearing mismatched socks and clutching her stuffed rabbit. Family filled the room. Laughter hummed like low music. My sister-in-law, Heather, fussed with the centerpiece while whispering that the balloons were too bright. Robert kept adjusting his tie, pretending he was calm, pretending he was proud, pretending a lot of things I would later realize. But that night, I thought we were celebrating a milestone as a family. And then Robert tapped his glass with a fork. The sound cut through the room, ting, 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 sharp enough to make my skin tighten. Everyone turned toward him. Even Chloe, who had been posing for a picture with her friends. He cleared his throat like an actor about to begin the second act of a play he'd rehearsed alone. "I have an announcement," he said. His voice was steady, too steady. And when he reached for my hand, it wasn't out of love. It was to hold me still. I didn't know what he was about to say, but I felt the shift like the air in the room suddenly pulled tight around my ribs. But that moment, that's where the story really starts. Not with the affair, not with the money disappearing, not even with the divorce papers I'd already prepared. It started with me realizing the man I'd built a life with was about to humiliate me in front of everyone we cared about. Before he could speak, I whispered, "Robert, don't." He didn't even look at me. He just kept tapping the glass with that same rehearsed smile. If you'd asked me a year before all this, "Vanessa, how's your marriage?" I would have said, "We're fine." Not exceptional, not thrilling, not the kind of love that makes you hug your knees and grin like a schoolgirl. Just fine. 22 years of marriage will do that. People think long marriages are built on romance or grand gestures, but they're really made of routines. Familiarity, two people knowing where the potholes of each other's moods are buried. I was the practical one, the planner, the one who checked expiration dates and saved receipts, just in case. I was a financial manager by trade, and Robert used to joke that I could stretch $1 so far it'd snap back and slap me. I'd roll my eyes. He'd kiss my cheek. He was comfortable. Robert ran a small construction firm. He loved the control of it, the schedules, the deadlines, the sense of being in charge. He walked like a man who always knew what room he was in. Confident, charming, sometimes too charming. Now that I look back, our daughter Chloe was our pride. A quiet but determined girl with big almond eyes and a way of listening so intently you felt like you mattered in the world. She wanted to study psychology, be a counselor. "Too many people go unheard, Mom," she'd tell me while stirring sugar into her tea. "Someone has to help them unpack their thoughts." I used to think she got that empathy from Robert, but life taught me otherwise. We lived in a 2-story home that smelled faintly of cedar from the wooden floors. Robert refinished himself a decade earlier. My mornings were spent packing lunches, replying to client emails, reminding Robert about dentist appointments, and wiping crumbs left behind by Chloe's late-night study sessions. Evenings were quieter. Dinner around 6. Chloe usually glued to her textbooks. Robert half listening to me talk about my day, answering with soft grunts unless something specifically involved him. Looking back, the distance had been there, lingering like dust on an unused shelf. Easy to ignore when you're busy surviving the everyday. I didn't notice when he started coming home later, or when he began lingering in the bathroom with his phone, or when he started complimenting me less and himself more. Because that's the thing about routine, he can hide 1,000 sins. Still, there were moments when I'd catch him looking at his reflection a little too long, adjusting his shirt like he wanted someone else to see how handsome he thought he was. I'd tease him. "You going somewhere, Mr. Fancy?" He'd grin, "Just making sure your husband still looks good." Harmless flirting, or so I believed. Heather, my sister-in-law, came over often. She had a way of folding laundry while giving life advice like she was narrating a radio show. Robert used to say she was nosy. I used to say she cared too much. But she once told me, "Vanessa, a woman always knows, even before she knows." At the time, I laughed it off. I wasn't laughing later. In the days leading up to Chloe's graduation, everything felt busier than usual. We were ironing clothes, choosing restaurants, making sure her grandparents could find parking. Robert acted nervous, pacing more than usual, checking his phone like someone owed him money. I thought it was fatherly excitement, or nerves about giving a toast. He loved attention, after all. He'd put his arm around me while we stood in the kitchen, his touch colder than I remembered, and say, "Big day for our girl tomorrow." And I'd nod, smiling at the thought. I think back to those moments the way people look back at photographs seeing all the clues they didn't catch the first time. How he pooed away when I reached for him. How he wore new cologne without mentioning he bought it. How he shaved twice in one day, just because. One night, as we lay in bed, he turned his back to me. He didn't say goodnight. He didn't kiss me. He didn't even pretend. The silence felt heavier than any argument could have been. I stared at the ceiling, the dim glow of the hallway, light creeping in through the cracked door, and told myself it was stress. Just stress. After all, marriages go through seasons, and ours had weathered worse. But my gut twisted in a way I couldn't ignore. Something was coming, something sharp. I just didn't know it would arrive in the form of a champagne toast. Robert lifted his glass again. As you all know, he began, smiling like a politician at a press conference. Tonight is about Chloe. But before we continue celebrating, I want to share something important. I felt the blood drain from my face. He wasn't about to thank me. He wasn't about to talk about Chloe's future. His tone had changed too formal, too practiced. Then he said it. Vanessa and I, we've decided to separate. The room froze. My ears rang. Heather's fork slipped from her hand and clattered onto her plate. Except he didn't say we've decided. He said I've decided. But the crowd didn't catch the difference. I did. And while everyone stared at me waiting for my reaction, waiting for tears, waiting for the broken wife, I sat perfectly still. Because unlike Robert, I did not come unprepared. I had known about the affair for months. I had already seen the financial documents. I had already uncovered Lauren. I had already filed for divorce. And I knew something Robert had forgotten. He was the one who insisted on the fidelity clause in our prenup, the one that was about to cost him everything. I folded my napkin and placed it on the table gently. He had blindsided me publicly, but I was about to blindside him legally. When Robert announced our separation in that banquet hall, the room felt like it tilted sideways. People stared at me the way you stare at a glass that's been dropped, waiting to see if it'll crack or shatter. My face felt hot, but my hands were ice cold under the table. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then Chloe said softly, "Dad, what are you talking about?" Her voice trembled. She looked so young in that moment, no cap or gown could hide it. 22 years old, but still my baby girl who used to crawl into my lap when thunderstorms scared her. Robert didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. He kept staring at the ceiling as if he expected applause to fall from it. "We didn't want to overshadow your big day," he continued. "But you're an adult now, and this family deserves honesty." I almost laughed. Honesty. A man drowning in lies preaching about honesty. But I stayed quiet. This wasn't the moment to reveal what I knew. Not yet. People imagine betrayal comes like a lightning strike. Sudden, bright, loud. But really, it creeps in like a draft under the door. Cold, slow, almost polite. It takes its time. My first clue came months earlier. One evening, sometime in early February, Robert asked me to hand him his phone while he was in the shower. Nothing unusual about that. He used to joke that I was his walking calendar. Birthdays, client meetings, tax deadlines. If I didn't remind him, he'd forget. But that night, when the phone buzzed in my hand, a notification slid across the screen. "I miss you already. Last night was everything." Lauren. My stomach dropped so fast I nearly lost my balance. I didn't immediately assume an affair. My mind tried to protect me, tried to make excuses. Maybe a wrong number? Maybe a coworker joking? Maybe a missent text? But love heart emojis? And last night? No, it wasn't a mistake. For a few seconds, I stood frozen in the dark hallway. My own reflection stared back at me from the blank TV screen, wide-eyed, breath shallow, hand trembling. Then I heard the shower turn off. I slipped the phone into his hands when he emerged, steam swirling around him. "There you go," I said, keeping my tone steady. He didn't thank me. He didn't smile. He barely looked up. He turned the phone face down on the counter. Too quickly, too carefully. That was the moment I knew. But knowing isn't the same as believing. Believing takes time. It takes proof. Robert had always worked long hours in construction, especially during busy seasons. But that February, his late nights became predictable. They always fell on Tuesdays and Fridays. He'd come home freshly showered, almost too fresh, like he was trying to wash away his day, or someone else's scent. One night, he walked through the front door, humming. Robert never hummed. Not once in our 22 years together. He kissed Chloe's forehead absent-mindedly, hung up his coat, and poured himself a glass of the expensive whiskey he used to save for special occasions. He looked renewed, like a man who'd found a secret spring in the desert. I watched him, stirring my tea, letting the steam warm my face. He didn't notice. He didn't notice anything about me anymore. "Long day?" I asked. He nodded without looking up. And how's the new project going?" Another nod. A lie can be small, and still fill a room like smoke. The next clue came in the form of a wrinkled receipt left in his jacket pocket. Robert always forgot to empty them before tossing his clothes into the hamper. This one wasn't for hardware or building materials. It was from a fancy restaurant, one we'd only gone to twice in our entire marriage. Both on anniversaries he forgot until the last minute. Dinner for two. A bottle of wine I knew he didn't drink. Dessert I knew he only pretended to like. The date matched one of his late nights. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed with that little slip of paper, running my thumb over the ink like I was trying to erase reality. The room around me was quiet except for the steady tick of the old wall clock. It sounded suddenly louder, almost mocking. Heather knocked on the door that day. She'd come over to borrow a slow cooker recipe. But one look at my face, and she sat beside me instead. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. I handed her the receipt. She stared at it, then at me. "You know what this means, right?" My throat tightened. "I think so," I whispered. Heather squeezed my knee. "Vanessa, I love my brother, but I'm not blind. If you need me, I'm here." I nodded. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Tears come when you accept the truth, and I wasn't ready for that. The biggest clue, the one that pushed everything from suspicion into certainty, came in March. As a financial manager, I handled most of our household accounts. It was easier that way. Robert disliked numbers unless they told him he was doing well. But that month, I noticed something unusual. Small transfers, hundreds at first, then thousands leaving our joint account and landing in a private account under Robert's name. When I asked him about it, he gave me that dismissive wave he used whenever he didn't want to be questioned. "Oh, just business stuff," he said. "You wouldn't understand." I raised an eyebrow. "I understand business." He rolled his eyes. "Well, I'm handling it. Don't worry." That was the first time he'd ever told me to stay out of our finances. It was also the last straw. A man hiding money is a man hiding something bigger. 2 weeks later, Robert made one careless mistake. He left his email open on the laptop. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But betrayal turns even the softest woman into an investigator. There were messages from a woman named Lauren, written in a tone so intimate my chest physically hurt reading them. Lines like, "Did your wife suspect anything last night? I wish we could wake up together every morning. Counting down the hours until I see you again." I closed the laptop slowly, gently, as if slamming it shut would make the words disappear. Then I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and let myself crumble. I slid down to the floor, my palms pressed to my face, and for the first time in months, I cried. The kind of cry that leaves your chest aching. The kind of cry you only allow when nobody can hear you. But when the tears finally stopped, something in me hardened, because the moment you see the betrayal clearly, you also see your own worth. And I wasn't going to let this man take any more from me. Not me dignity, not my future, not my daughter's respect, not even a single dollar more. I wiped my face, stood up slowly, and whispered to my reflection, "You're done being fooled." That was the night I decided to prepare. Because while Robert thought he was orchestrating the end of our marriage, he had no idea I was already writing the final chapter. People think the moment of betrayal is a single event, a dramatic scene, a confrontation, a slammed door. But for me, the discovery came in layers. Each one hurt a little more. Each one peeled back another truth I didn't want to see. But the final discovery, the one that burned everything down, that happened on a soft Sunday morning. The house was unusually quiet that day. Chloe was out studying with friends. Robert claimed he had an early client meeting, which already struck me as strange. No one schedules construction consults at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. But I didn't question him. I let him leave. I brewed my coffee the way I always do, one sugar. No cream, stood by the kitchen window, and watched the sun roll across our street in slow, golden waves. Birds chirped. A neighbor's sprinkler clicked. It should have been a peaceful morning. But peace doesn't stay in a house built on lies. I opened my laptop to pay bills, and that's when I saw it. A notification for an unauthorized transfer. 8,500美元. From our joint savings to Robert's private account. I stared at the screen, the numbers almost glowing. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. $8,500. In one single move. That wasn't a man hiding a date night. That was a man preparing for a life somewhere else. My breath caught in my chest. I picked up the phone and dialed the bank. And what the representative told me made my blood run cold. I remember gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Lauren Pierce," she repeated. "The funds were transferred from your joint account to a personal account under that name. It appears to be recurring." Recurring, recurring, recurring. The word echoed in my head like a cruel drumbeat. I thanked her mechanically, hung up the phone, sank into a kitchen chair, and stared at the hardwood floor that Robert had refinished himself years ago. Everything suddenly felt unfamiliar. Even the house he built for us felt like it belonged to a stranger. Robert wasn't just cheating. He was funding another woman's life. With our money. With my work. With our daughter's future savings. The betrayal sliced deeper than I could handle. I stood up slowly, grabbed my purse, and drove. I didn't even know exactly where I was going until I got there. Robert always claimed he hated hotels, said the sheets smelled like bleach and strangers. But the receipt I found weeks earlier told me otherwise. And that's where I went. A mid-range hotel on the outskirts of town. The kind with beige carpets and fake plants in the lobby. I walked through the sliding doors, my heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" He swallowed hard. "I'm looking for my husband," I said. "Robert Sterling. He may be staying with someone. Lauren Pierce." She hesitated just enough to tell me everything. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't, please," I whispered. "I just need to know." Something in my voice must have pierced through her professionalism, because her expression softened. Finally, she leaned in slightly and murmured, "They checked in last night." My vision blurred. "Checked in. Together. Last night. Room 214. She added under her breath. I nodded, my throat burning, and walked toward the elevator. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and the carpet muffled my footsteps, making everything feel surreal. When I reached the door, I didn't knock immediately. I heard laughter. Robert's laughter. The one he used to save for Chloe's birthday surprises, or random Saturday mornings when we danced in the kitchen. A laughter I hadn't heard in months, maybe years, and now it belonged to someone else. I raised my fist and knocked. 3 firm knocks, the kind that leave no room for denial. Silence, then rustling, whispers, ad or chain sliding. Finally, the door cracked open, and there he was. Robert stood there in a wrinkled shirt, hair messy, shock plastered across his face like a guilty child caught stealing candy. Behind him, wrapped in a hotel bedsheet like some twisted painting, was Lauren younger, thinner, smiling in a way that turned my stomach. "Vanessa?" Robert choked out. "What are you?" I held up my hand. "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't make this worse." He looked between me and Lauren, frozen in panic. "It's not what you think," he stammered. I let out a soft laugh, the kind that hurts coming out. "You're standing in a hotel room with your mistress," I said. "What exactly do you think I think?" His jaw clenched. I can explain." "You don't need to," I whispered. "I know everything." He blinked rapidly. "What does that mean?" "It means I know about the money. The transfers, the dinners, the emails, the private account, the lies." Lauren stepped back like my words were physical blows. Robert's face drained of color. I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "I also know about this." I handed it to him. He opened the envelope, his eyes darting across the papers. Then he froze, because those weren't printed emails or receipts. They were divorce papers. Filed, processed, ready for service, and attached to the top, in bold letters, "Fidelity clause violation, full asset forfeit." Robert staggered back, his hand gripping the doorframe. You filed for divorce?" he whispered. 3 weeks ago," I said, "when I saw the first wire transfer." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You blindsided me," he whispered. "No," I said softly, meeting his eyes. "You blindsided yourself." Lauren looked between us, eyes wide, suddenly realizing the consequences she had walked into. I took a slow breath. "I'm done, Robert," I said. "You made your choice. Just remember, you're not walking away from me. You're walking away from our daughter, our home, our life." He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. I turned and walked away. I didn't run. I didn't cry. Each step felt like shedding another layer of pain. By the time I reached the elevator, my hands were shaking. But my heart, for the first time in months, it felt strong. I wasn't prepared for what I saw when I stepped fully into that house. At first, it looked normal. Tout normal. A faint smell of lavender air freshener floated through the hallway. A pair of women's slippers sat neatly by a shoe rack. A family photo hung on the wall, a cheap frame, but posed like a loving home. Except the man in that photo wasn't John. It was my husband, standing beside a woman I had never seen before, holding Chloe on her 2nd birthday, except she wasn't named Chloe in that picture. The pink birthday banner behind her read, "Happy birthday, Hannah." My chest tightened so hard it hurt to breathe. I grabbed the picture frame, my hands shaking. John, no. James was smiling wide, wearing the same easy charm he used on me. The woman beside him had soft brown hair and kind eyes, her arm looped through his like she fully believed in the life they shared. I stared at the child again. The same dimpled cheeks, the same curly hair, the same birthmark on the shoulder. My Chloe, exact, unmistakable. But no, 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 no. Why does my daughter have another name? I screamed into the empty house. Kayla stumbled in behind me, pale as a ghost. "Vanessa, I think he had another family. I slammed the photo down on the table. No, my Chloe is mine. She is my daughter. Kayla swallowed. Vanessa, the dates. I flipped the frame over, hands trembling. A scribble on the back read, Hannah's zweite birthday, 2012, 2012. Chloe was also born in 2012. My ears roared as if the world was underwater. My knees nearly buckled. Kayla, I whispered. He duplicated an entire identity. He copied her. Kayla's voice shook. He didn't just cheat Ness. He lived two lives at the same time. I felt sick. My husband was a father twice over. To the same child, but with two different women, two different names, two different worlds. I pressed my hand to my forehead, trying to breathe. Why would he? Why Chloe? Why would he lie like this? Why hide her identity? Kayla looked around the house. Because whatever he's involved in isn't normal. I didn't want to accept that. I didn't want to believe my husband was some kind of monster. But then we reached the kitchen, and everything became worse. There were papers on the counter, thick manila folders, neatly stacked. Some were open, others sealed. Kayla flipped the first one open and gasped. Inside were birth certificates, school records, medical files, photos of Chloe from every age, except every document used a different name. Hannah, Isabelle, Riley, Nora. 4 different identities. One child, my blood ran cold. What is this? I whispered. Kayla skimmed through another stack. He was changing her identity every 2 years. New name, new records, new address. I felt dizzy. Why would anyone do that to a child? I froze. Hide her from what? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into the pile and pulled out a small, worn notebook. The cover was cracked, old, and dusty like something he didn't intend anyone to ever find. She handed it to me. Read it, she whispered. My hands tingled as I opened the first page. The handwriting was unmistakably my husband's. At the top of the page, Project Aurora notes. My heart lurched. Project Aurora? What project involved my daughter? I flipped to the next page. There were dates, times, locations, instructions. And then I read a sentence that nearly knocked the breath out of me. Keep her hidden until Phase 4. The others can never know. The room tilted. Phase 4? I whispered. Others? Hidden? From who? Kayla slowly backed away from the counter as if the papers might explode. Vanessa, this looks like something government level. Or underground. I stared at the notebook, my hands trembling uncontrollably. No, my husband was boring, I said, my voice cracking. He worked at an office. He was quiet. He filed taxes early. He wasn't capable of something like this. But inside, I knew I was lying. James was never truly present. He traveled more than any accountant ever should. He had secret numbers, secret phones, secret calls. He always kept Chloe close, too close, never letting anyone babysit, never letting her join activities alone. He once snapped at me for posting a photo of her online. Take it down, he'd said sharply, almost panicked. Don't ever post her again. At the time, I thought he was just being protective. Now I felt sick. Kayla grabbed my arm. There's more. She pointed at a locked drawer in the dining room cabinet. It had a keyhole. We need to know what's in there. My instincts screamed to run, to take Chloe and disappear, to pretend none of this was real. But something inside me, a fierce, terrified mother, pushed forward. I searched the drawers, the desk, the shelves. Finally, I found a small brass key taped behind a picture frame. My hands shook as I slid it into the lock. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside was a single object. A black flip phone. Ancient, intransable, deliberate. Kayla whispered. Open it. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat. I flipped the phone open. It blinked to life, displaying one unread message. Just one. From a contact saved as Supervisor. My breath caught. I clicked open. The message read, Phase 4 begins in 9 days. Secure the girl. Kayla gasped. Oh my God. My whole body went cold. Sophia, secure the girl. Chloe, my Chloe. Someone or something was coming for her. My vision blurred with tears as the full weight of the truth crashed down. My husband wasn't just living a double life. He was hiding my daughter from dangerous people. Maybe even from them. I clutched the phone to my chest, shaking so hard I could barely stand. We have to go, I whispered. We need to get Chloe. Right now. Kayla grabbed her keys. Vanessa, we're not going alone. We're calling someone, anyone. But before we reached the door, something rattled behind us. A sound, a soft metallic click. I turned slowly. The front door lock was turning. From the outside, Kayla's eyes went wide with fear. Vanessa, someone's here. My heartbeat ricocheted in my ears. The air tightened, thick and suffocating. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy ceramic vase holding it like a shield. The doorknob turned again. A silhouette appeared behind the frosted glass. Tall. Broad. Still. Not James. Someone else. Kayla whispered. Who is that? I swallowed hard. Every instinct in my body screaming to run. But it was too late. The door swung open, and a man stepped inside. His eyes didn't scan the house. He scanned me. And then he said in a calm, chilling voice, Mrs. Carter, you shouldn't be here. I froze. That man filled the doorway like a shadow stepping into my nightmare. He wasn't dressed like a neighbor. He wasn't dressed like police. Black jacket, black gloves, expression carved out of stone. But what terrified me wasn't the way he looked. It was the way he said my name. Mrs. Carter, you shouldn't be here. My throat tightened. Who are you? He stepped inside, closing the door with a soft click, like he owned the air in the room, like we were an inconvenience. Kayla instinctively moved closer to me, her hand brushing mine. Stay behind me, she whispered, but I could hear the fear in her voice. The man tilted his head slightly, studying us as if calculating something. Where is James? He asked calmly. Not John, not any of the names he used for us. He used his real one, or at least the real one to him. My voice cracked. He's not here. I can see that, the man said, scanning the living room, the photos, the open folders. You two shouldn't have opened anything. My stomach lurched. You need to tell me what's going on. What is Phase 4? What does secure the girl mean? Why does my daughter have 4 names? Why? He cut me off with a sharp look. Mrs. Carter, you're already in deeper than you should be. The situation is delicate. Kayla stepped forward. Delicate? She's a mother. Someone is after her daughter. He raised a hand. Not threatening, more like enough. Your friend is right, he said, eyes shifting to me. Someone is after the girl. The room tilted. Chloe, my baby. My precious little girl with the sleep-talking giggle, and the curl that always fell over her left eye. I gripped the edge of the counter to stay upright. Why? Why would anyone want my child? He took a slow breath, like he was deciding how much to reveal. Then, because she is part of something bigger than you know. My heart hammered. She's a child. She's just a child. He shook his head. Not to them. Them. That one word sent a chill ripping down my spine. Who are they? I whispered. He didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, he walked past us and picked up the little black flip phone from the table, the one with the message. He looked at it with something like irritation. This was not meant for you, he said quietly. These timelines were not supposed to overlap. Timelines. My blood ran cold. What do you mean timelines? What is this? What was James doing with my daughter? He finally met my eyes, and the look in his was not cruel. It was resigned. James was protecting her. I blinked. Protecting her? He lied. Cheated. Ran multiple families. Changed her name. Yes, the man said softly. To keep her alive. The room went silent. A deep, suffocating silence. I stared at him, tears swelling in my eyes. Alive? What do you mean alive? He exhaled through his nose, pacing once, twice, as if weighing secrets he wasn't allowed to say. Then he lowered his voice. There are people who believe Chloe is valuable. Valuable how? Kayla demanded. He ignored her, eyes locked on me. His voice was clinical but not unkind. She has something others want. Something she inherited. My breath caught. Inherited from who? He didn't hesitate. Her father. A sound escaped my throat, half sob, half disbelief. Kayla grabbed my arm. Vanessa, he's messing with your head. I shook my head violently. No. I know, James. There was always something off the late nights, the secrecy, the travel, the panic if anyone photographed her. The truth was crawling toward me like a storm. The man finally spoke again. Phase 4 was the point at which they would stop letting her slip through the cracks. Identity changes wouldn't protect her anymore. James knew that. That's why he kept you separate. My voice broke. Separate? From what? He looked at me with that same steady expression. From the hunt. My knees nearly gave out. The hunt? For my child? I clutched the counter to stay upright. Where is he now? Where is James? If he was protecting her, why disappear? Why leave us? The man's face shifted not with cruelty, but with something like regret. Because he ran out of time. My chest tightened. What does that mean? He stepped closer. James didn't leave you. He was taken. Kayla gasped. Taken by who? He didn't answer. Instead, he whispered, and if you stay here any longer, they will take you too. My breath stuttered. Where is Chloe? She's with my sister today. He cut me off sharply. No, you need to get to her. Now. I grabbed my purse and keys instinctively. Kayla moved toward the door too, but the man held up a hand again. Not like this. We don't have time, I cried. I need to get to my daughter. If you walk into the open, he said, you will lead them straight to her. My heartbeat stopped cold. Them. Always them. Who are you? I demanded. Tell me your name. He hesitated for the first time since stepping inside. Then he answered quietly. My name is not important. What matters is that James trusted me. I froze. He asked me to watch you, in case things accelerated. Accelerated. Another terrifying word. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a card. Plain, white, unmarked, except for a single phone number written in black ink. When you get Chloe, call me from a payphone. Never from your cell. Never from your home. If you love your daughter, you will follow exactly what I say. My hands shook as I took the card. Kayla grabbed my wrist. Vanessa, you don't have to trust him. The man spoke again, sharply. If you don't trust me, fine. But understand this. He pointed to the open file on the table with Chloe's toddler photo under the name Hannah. Your husband spent 12 years trying to keep your daughter off their radar. He looked right into my soul, and she just landed squarely in the center of it. A wave of nausea tightened every nerve in my body. Kayla whispered, we need to go. Now. The man stepped aside, clearing the doorway, and in the calmest, most terrifying voice, he said, run, Mrs. Carter, before they get here. We didn't walk out of that house. We ran. Kayla pulled me by the wrist like I was a child she was dragging out of oncoming traffic. My legs barely kept up with her. The world felt tilted, unreal, like I was moving underwater. The man didn't follow. He stayed in the doorway, a silent silhouette against the dim living room light. But his final words echoed in my skull. Run, before they get here. My hands shook so badly that I fumbled my keys twice before unlocking the car. Kayla practically shoved me into the passenger seat. I'm driving, she said. I didn't argue. I could barely breathe. The moment she turned the ignition, the floodgates broke inside me. Kayla, my baby, what if something... She squeezed the steering wheel, her knuckles white. We're going to get her. We're not thinking any further than that. Breathe, Vanessa. Please, just breathe. But how could I? How do you breathe when your entire world just shifted under your feet? For 12 years, I thought my husband was a liar, a cheater, a selfish man who abandoned his responsibilities. Now a stranger was telling me he was something else entirely. A protector, a man running from something bigger, a man who didn't leave because he wanted to, but because he was taken. Kayla sped through the quiet suburban streets like she was slicing through the night. I swear, she muttered under her breath. If any of this man's mess hurts your daughter, I'm going to find someone to burn his world down. Normally I would have laughed. Tonight I could barely speak. I pressed a shaking hand to my chest. Chloe is with Heather. They're probably watching TV and eating popcorn right now. This is insane. This is... Kayla cut me off. This is happening. And we're going to keep your daughter safe. That's it. I nodded. But my throat was too tight to speak. I didn't understand any of this. Phase 4. Identity changes. The hunt. What was Chloe born into? And how much had James known? We turned onto my sister-in-law Heather's street, the small row of houses lit by warm porch lights, and the soft hum of early evening. For the first time since leaving the other house, I felt a flicker of relief. Heather's house. My safe place. Heather always kept a blanket folded right on the arm of her couch for whoever was cold. She made the best banana bread. She hummed without realizing it when she cooked. It was the place where my daughter was supposed to be safe. Kayla pulled into the driveway too fast, tires crunching over the gravel. We jumped out before the engine even fully shut off. I didn't bother knocking. I pushed the door open and shouted, Heather? Chloe? The house smelled like Jasmine Heather's favorite candles. The TV was on low. A cartoon playing? My heart steadied. And then, a noise in the kitchen. Not Heather's soft footsteps. A heavy sound. A drawer closing. Someone moving with purpose. Kayla's eyes snapped toward me wide. Alert. She mouthed, Get behind me. I shook my head, terror clawing at my throat. My daughter. Before I could finish, someone stepped into view from the kitchen hallway. Not Heather. Not Chloe. A man. Different from the one we just left. This one was bigger. Bulkier. Dressed in dark gray. A cap pulled low over his forehead. And in his hand, my stomach dropped. He held Chloe's little purple backpack, the one she decorated with stickers, the one she carried everywhere. Kayla took one step forward. "Where's the girl?" The man smiled the kind of smile that didn't belong in a house filled with cartoon noises and jasmine candles. "She's not here." My knees nearly buckled. "Where's my daughter? What did you do?" He raised a hand, almost polite. "Don't. I'm not here for you." My breath hitched. "Where is she?" He didn't answer. Instead, he tossed the tiny purple backpack onto the couch, as if it meant nothing. As if my child meant nothing. A single small noise escaped my throat. Part sob, part disbelief. Kayla stepped in front of me like a barrier. "I swear to God, if you hurt that little girl." "We didn't take her." He shrugged. "Someone else got here first. The room spun." "Someone else?" I croaked. "Who?" He ignored me. Instead, he looked around the living room, scanning pictures on the mantel, the hallway, the layout. "Shame," he said calmly. "We were supposed to grab her tonight. Looks like we weren't the only ones who got the update." My hands flew to my mouth. "Grab her. Not protect her. Not talk to her. Grab her." "Why?" I whispered. "Why, my child?" He tilted his head with a blank expression. "Orders." "From who?" Kayla demanded. He glanced at her, unbothered. Above my pay grade, I felt the edges of my sanity tearing. "Where is Heather? Where is my sister-in-law?" He pointed lazily toward the backyard. "She put up a fight." My scream caught in my throat as I rushed past Kayla, through the sliding door, and there she was, Heather, alive, tied to a lawn chair with duct tape around her wrists, eyes wide, terrified, but very much breathing. "Thank God." "Vanessa!" she cried when she saw me. "They took her! They took Chloe!" One man, short, shaved head, he grabbed her and put her in a black SUV. My heart shattered. I dropped to my knees, working desperately to untie her. He said they were coming for her, that I couldn't stop him. "Vanessa, I'm so sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," I whispered, tears falling. Inside the house, footsteps shifted. "Kayla." And then, a loud crash. I whipped around. "Kayla?" No answer. Heather struggled to stand, shaking. "Go. Go!" I ran inside just as the front door slammed. The man was gone, and Kayla was on her knees, breathless, holding her stomach where he'd shoved her into the corner table. She looked up at me, eyes blazing, furious and afraid. "They took her, Vanessa," she whispered. "They took your baby." Something inside me broke open, something primal. I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. I went still, cold, focused, just like the man in the dark jacket had said. The hunt had reached my doorstep, and my daughter was in the center of it. I lifted the white card he'd given me with the single phone number. My hands no longer trembled. "Kayla," I said, my voice a low, steady hum. "We're not waiting for help." She looked up at me. "We're getting my daughter back." I don't remember walking to the car. I don't remember grabbing my purse, or Kayla's hand closing around my arm, or Heather calling after us with a trembling voice. All I remember is the number on that white card. One single number. My entire world balanced on 10 digits written in cheap black ink. We drove in silence, a thick, suffocating silence, broken only by my breath shaking in my chest. Kayla kept glancing at me, but she didn't try to talk. She didn't try to comfort me. She knew better. Sometimes grief needs quiet to grow into determination. "Where are we going?" she finally whispered. "A payphone," I said. It didn't even sound like my voice. Payphones barely existed anymore, but I knew where to find one. By the old bus station, the place where I used to wait for James when we were young and stupid and in love. Back when he would jog across the street with a smile so big it lit up the night. Now I was returning alone, to call a stranger. A stranger who apparently knew more about my husband than I ever did. Kayla parked near the flickering streetlight. The bus station was nearly empty, just a homeless man sleeping under an advertisement board and a young couple arguing softly near the bench. The payphone stood near the wall, scratched, dirty, smelling faintly of rust and old pennies. I stared at it. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Kayla touched my shoulder. "Vanessa, you're not alone." I nodded. But this part I had to do myself. I lifted the receiver. Cold. Heavy? My fingers dialed the number with a strange calm, as though something inside me had snapped into place. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered. "Do not say your name." My blood ran cold. It was him, the man from the house, the one who told me to run. I pressed the receiver to my ear. "They have my daughter." A beat, then his voice dropped lower, calmer. "I know." My chest tightened. "Then help me. Please, please, you have to help me." "I will." he said. But we need to move fast. He spoke like someone used to crises, steady, unemotional, direct. Tell me everything, he continued. Who took her? What did they say? Did they leave anything behind? I swallowed hard. A man with a shaved head. Black SUV. Heather said he acted like he was following orders. That matches, he murmured. Level 2 retrieval team. Not highly trained, but dangerous enough. Retrieval. The word made me sick. She's a child, I whispered. Why would anyone retrieve a child? He didn't answer. Not for a long moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. Because she isn't just a child to them. My stomach twisted. What is she then? He exhaled the faintest sound of frustration or resignation. It isn't what she is, it's what she carries. Carries. Carries what? I demanded. A pause. She carries the last piece of her father's work. I felt the floor drop out from under me. What work? He didn't hesitate. The work that got him killed. The world tilted. James is dead? His silence was answer enough. I nearly dropped the phone. No. He couldn't be dead. I would have felt it. I would have known. Kayla saw my face and stepped closer. Mouthed. What did he say? I couldn't answer. My voice came out as a whisper. What did they want from him? Everything, he said. But they didn't get it. So now they want her. A cold fury ignited inside me. Where is she? I choked out. I don't care about motives. I don't care about secrets. Tell me where my daughter is. He spoke slowly, carefully. The SUV you described belongs to the lower section. They move fast. They'll switch cars within 40 minutes to avoid tracing. How long has it been? I asked. A pause. His voice sharpened. You need to move. Now. I felt nauseous. How do we find them? You leave the bus station, he said. Go back to your car. Drive north toward the old industrial bridge. North? I blinked. Why north? Because that's where I am, he said. My heart stuttered. You're watching us? A soft sigh. I've been watching since the moment you left Heather's. A chill crawled up my spine. Kayla glanced toward the dim parking lot, eyes narrowing. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I whispered. It should, he replied. Because you're safe with me, and you no longer have time to decide whether to trust me. My grip tightened on the receiver. What does that mean? It means, he said quietly, they're already tracking you. My blood ran cold. What? How? I followed all your instructions. You didn't turn off your cell phone. I felt the ground shift. Kayla pulled hers out instantly, cursing under her breath. Mine is off. Turn yours off. Now. But before I could even reach into my purse, headlights flashed across the lot. A car turning in. Slow. Deliberate. Tu deliberate. The man's voice pressed urgently through the phone. Do not look back. My breath hitched. Hang up, he said. Walk to the car. Get inside. Immediately. Who is it? I whispered. Not my people, he replied, voice sharpening. Move now. The car pulled closer. Not fast. Hunting slow. My skin prickled with cold realization. They weren't guessing. They weren't searching. They already knew exactly where I was. Kayla grabbed my arm. Vanessa now. I whispered into the phone. Where do we go? Straight to me, he said. I'll guide you the rest of the way. The approaching car slowed. My fingers trembled around the receiver. And then, run, he said again, voice low and urgent. Don't stop. Don't look back. Go get your daughter. I slammed the receiver down. Kayla and I bolted for the car. The approaching vehicle revved once like a predator baring its teeth. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to, because for the first time since this nightmare began, I could feel it in my bones. They weren't just watching. They were hunting, and I was done being prey. I was going to get my daughter back, or lose everything trying. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I kept replaying everything in my head. Mom's final words, the truth I had uncovered, the lies that had been wrapped around my entire life like a suffocating blanket. Morning sunlight crept through the curtains, but it brought me no comfort. Not today, not anymore. Because today, I was finally going to confront the man who'd stolen 42 years of my life. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I followed the attorney's car toward the address written in that final envelope Mom had left. A farmhouse. A Kiet Road. A life I should have had. I kept whispering to myself, stay calm, James. Stay calm. But how do you stay calm when you're about to meet the man whose lies shaped every second of your existence? When we finally turned down the gravel road, I felt my heart sink into my stomach. The house wasn't big. Wasn't fancy. It looked normal. Safe. Like the kind of place where kids grow up climbing trees, Chasing dogs, laughing in the yard, everything I never had. For a long moment, I couldn't open the car door. Then the attorney placed a hand on my shoulder. "He knows you're coming." That sentence hit me harder than anything else. He knew. He knew who I was. He knew what he'd done. He'd been waiting. When I finally stepped out, an older man stood on the porch. Wide shoulders, weathered hands, gray hair that still held its shape. He wasn't a stranger. Not really. Because for a moment, I could have sworn I was looking at an older version of myself. Sameyaulina. Same stance, same stubborn, tired eyes. And that shattered me. Because I knew. Right then, Mum hadn't lied. Not about this. He stepped forward slowly, his boots crunching on gravel. "James?" His voice cracked. My throat tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I nodded. Barely. He swallowed hard and whispered, "Son, I raised a hand sharply. "Don't." My voice broke. "Not yet." He froze and nodded. Inside, the house smelled like old wood, coffee, and something painfully familiar. I didn't sit. I couldn't. He finally spoke. "I've waited 42 years for you to walk through that door." I clenched my jaw. "Then why didn't you come for me?" He exhaled a long, heavy breath like he'd been holding it for decades. "Because your mother..." He paused. "She told me you died." My world tilted. "What?" My voice came out small, sharp, disbelieving. "She told you I died." He nodded, eyes red. "I thought you were gone. For good. I mourned you. I buried your things. His voice cracked. "I never questioned her. I had no reason to." My pulse hammered in my ears. "Mum, why? Why would she do that?" I whispered, barely audible. "She said you abandoned us." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "James, I never left you. She took you. She ran. And I searched for 5 years before she told me you passed away from pneumonia." His voice broke completely. I believed her. Because I loved her. I staggered back a step. The room spun. Breath refused to enter my lungs. Mom hadn't just lied. She'd destroyed 2 lives with 1 sentence. He went to a drawer, hands shaking, and returned with a bundle of old envelopes. Worn. Yellowed. All addressed to me. "I wrote every year on your birthday," he whispered. "Even after she said you were gone. Just in case." My chest cracked wide open. He placed the bundle gently in my hands. "Read them whenever you're ready. They're yours." For the first time in my life, I wasn't angry. I wasn't confused. I was heartbroken. Because this man, this stranger, had loved me from a distance while I grew up believing I wasn't wanted by anyone. He finally asked the one question I wasn't prepared for. Did she treat you well?" I closed my eyes. Images flashed. Cold kitchens, silent dinners, punishments for mistakes I didn't understand, birthdays ignored, loneliness that felt like a second skin. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. His shoulders collapsed. "God, I knew it," he whispered. "I always knew she wasn't stable, but I never thought..." Silence swallowed the room. I whispered softly. "She wasn't evil, but she was angry. At you, at the world, and I was the thing she held in her hands when she needed to feel powerful." Those words tasted like blood. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, trying to be strong. "James, if I had known, I would have torn the world apart to get to you." And somehow, I believed him. Before I could respond, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Light ones. Quick. A young woman appeared, maybe in her early 20s, carrying a mug of coffee. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Dad, is that?" He nodded silently. She stared at me, stunned. "You're my brother?" Brother. The word stabbed me and soothed me at the same time. My voice cracked. I guess I am." She set the mug down, rushed forward, and without hesitation, without fear or awkwardness, she hugged me. A real hug. Warm. Honest. The kind I'd never had. "We've waited for you our whole lives," she whispered into my shoulder. "Welcome home." My eyes burned. Home. A word I'd never truly known. We talked for hours. About what happened. About what should have happened. About what still could happen. I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Not fully. But, for the first time, I saw a future not shaped by the lies of the past. And when I left the farmhouse that evening, letters pressed to my chest like fragile bones, I realized this wasn't the end of my story. This was the beginning. Part 5 wasn't the conclusion. It was the door opening. Because now that the truth was out, réveil, justice, healing, all of it was coming next. The following weeks were a whirlwind, a storm of meetings, phone calls, and quiet moments I wasn't sure how to process. The letters from my father became my lifeline. Each one told a story. Stories of love, regret, missed chances, and hope. But they also painted a picture of a man trapped by circumstances, manipulated and betrayed by people I was only beginning to understand. I knew one thing for certain. I had to face my mother, not with anger or accusations, but with questions. Why did she hide me? Why did she choose a lie over truth? And what had she been running from all those years? I found her in a small apartment, smelling faintly of mothballs and regret. She looked older than I expected, her face a map of sorrows I had never known. Her eyes were wary, but when I spoke, something in her softened. I need to understand, I said quietly. She hesitated, then told me her story. A story of pain, betrayal, and a secret too heavy to carry. She'd been protecting me, she said, from a past that was darker than I could imagine. But protection came at a cost: years of separation, loneliness, and lies. With the truth unfolding, I started to see everything in a new light. James's disappearance, the secrets, the stolen childhood, none of it was my fault. And neither was my mother's brokenness. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. But slowly, with the support of my newfound family and friends, I began to rebuild. I started volunteering, helping others who had been abandoned or betrayed. I found peace in knowing my story, painful as it was a testament to survival. Life is never simple. Sometimes, the people we love carry burdens we cannot see. But even in the deepest darkness, there is a path forward. We are not defined by our beginnings, but by how we choose to heal and grow. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. It's a story about broken promises, hidden truths, and the long, winding road back to healing. I often wonder how many of us carry wounds shaped by secrets and silence. How many families are fractured by things left unsaid. And yet, how powerful it is when we find the courage to face the past, not to punish, but to understand and grow. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this story, it's this. Our beginnings may be messy, painful, even unfair. But the power to rewrite our story, to choose love over bitterness, truth over silence, that power is always within us. Would you have the strength to face a past that was hidden from you? Would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share. Your support helps bring more real stories of courage and healing to life. Until next time, remember, healing is possible, even when the road feels long.